She stood outside the church, wedding invitation trembling in her hands. Inside, her fiancé was marrying someone else. The betrayal should have destroyed her. But across the street, a man in a black car had been waiting 3 years for this exact moment. What happened next changed everything. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, this story will remind you that sometimes the worst heartbreak leads to the greatest blessing. Stay until the end. You won't believe how this unfolds. And if you enjoy real stories about resilience and unexpected love, hit that subscribe button right now. Claire Morrison was scrolling through Instagram on an ordinary Tuesday morning when her entire world shattered. She was sitting at her kitchen table, coffee in hand, still wearing her pajamas. 28 years old, working as a marketing coordinator in Seattle, living a modest but comfortable life. She had been with her fiancé Derek for 4 years. And though their relationship had hit some rough patches lately, she believed they were solid. She believed in them. But the photo on her screen told a different story. There was Derek, wearing a crisp navy suit, smiling wider than she'd ever seen him smile. And next to him, in a flowing white dress, was Vanessa, his colleague, the woman he'd always said was just a friend from work. The caption read, "Best day of my life. Forever starts now." The wedding had happened yesterday. While Claire had been working late at her office, answering emails and planning what she thought was their future together, Derek had been exchanging vows with another woman. Her hands started shaking so violently she nearly dropped her phone. She couldn't breathe. The walls of her small apartment seemed to close in around her. She checked her phone frantically. No missed calls, no texts, no explanation. Nothing. Derek had simply vanished from her life and started a new one, as if their 4 years together had never existed. As if the engagement ring still sitting in her jewelry box meant nothing. As if she meant nothing. The signs had been there, of course. Looking back, Claire could see them all so clearly. Derek had proposed 2 years ago on a rainy evening that felt more obligatory than romantic. But she'd said yes anyway, thrilled that he'd finally committed. The wedding planning, however, never quite happened. There was always a reason to postpone. His career was demanding. The timing wasn't right. They needed to save more money. He needed space to think about their future. Claire's friends had warned her. They'd noticed how Derek never prioritized her, how he was always secretive with his phone, how dates were canceled last minute with vague excuses. But Claire had defended him every single time. She'd made excuses for his behavior, convinced herself that love meant being patient, that he was just stressed, that things would get better once his life settled down. Last month, Derek had asked for a break. He'd said he needed time to think about what he really wanted. And Claire, desperate to keep him, had given him that space. She'd waited patiently, barely sleeping, checking her phone every 5 minutes, hoping he'd realize she was the one. Turns out, he'd been using that time to plan a wedding. Just not with her. Claire tried calling him. The number was blocked. She drove to his apartment in a daze, barely remembering the route. When she arrived, his things were gone. The apartment was empty except for a few pieces of furniture. She knocked on his mother's door down the hall, hoping for answers, for something that made sense. Derek's mother opened the door, took one look at Claire's tear-stained face, and said coldly, "He's happy now. Please leave him alone." Then she closed the door. Claire drove back to her apartment and collapsed on her bedroom floor. Her wedding dress still hung in the closet, wrapped in plastic, a ghost of a future that would never happen. 4 years of her life, gone in an instant. She'd given him everything, her time, her trust, her unwavering loyalty, and he'd discarded her like she was nothing. The following week was a blur. Claire forced herself to go to work, moving through her days like a zombie. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything except the betrayal that played on repeat in her mind. One morning, she stopped at her usual coffee shop, barely able to order without her voice breaking. As she turned away from the counter, she bumped directly into someone, and hot coffee splashed everywhere. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, looking up at the man she'd just crashed into. He was tall, probably mid-30s, wearing an expensive charcoal suit that now had coffee stains on it. But he wasn't angry. His dark eyes were filled with concern as he studied her face. "Don't worry about it," he said gently. Are you okay? There was something in the way he asked, as if he could see straight through her fragile composure to the broken person underneath, and that small act of kindness broke her. Claire started crying right there in the middle of the coffee shop. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm such a mess. I'm so sorry. The man guided her to a corner table, got her fresh coffee, and sat down across from her. He didn't rush her or look uncomfortable with her tears. He simply listened as she poured out the whole pathetic story, the secret wedding, the betrayal, the 4 wasted years. When she finally finished, he handed her his card. My name is Nicholas Hart, he said. If you need anything, call me. There was something oddly familiar in his eyes, a depth of understanding that felt too personal for a stranger, but Claire was too devastated to notice. She thanked him, tucked the card into her purse, and never planned to call. 2 weeks crawled by. Claire was drowning at work, losing clients because she couldn't concentrate, getting to the office late, leaving early. Then her phone rang with an unexpected call. It was someone from Hart Industries, offering her an interview for a senior marketing director position. The salary was triple what she currently made. Claire was confused she hadn't applied there, but she was also desperate for any kind of change, any escape from the life that reminded her of Derek. She went to the interview and was stunned when Nicholas Hart himself walked into the conference room. He was the CEO. He remembered her from the coffee shop, he said. He'd looked into her portfolio and was impressed by her work. The job was hers if she wanted it. Claire's first instinct was suspicion. This felt too convenient, too good to be true. But she was also tired of struggling, tired of falling apart. She accepted the position. Working at Hart Industries changed everything. Nicholas was professional, but attentive in ways Derek had never been. He made sure she had the best office with natural light. When she worked late, lunch would appear at her desk with a simple note, "Don't forget to eat." He never crossed boundaries, never made her uncomfortable, but he was always somehow present when she needed support. The office gossip fascinated Claire. Nicholas Hart, they said, never showed personal interest in anyone. He was polite, generous, fair, but emotionally distant. Yet with Claire, he was different, warmer, more human. 3 months into the job, Claire was working late on a major campaign. Nicholas appeared in her doorway with 2 cups of coffee. He sat down across from her desk, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. Claire finally asked the question that had been nagging at her since day one. Why did you really hire me? Nicholas set down his coffee cup. He was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth to tell. Then he said, I knew you before the coffee shop, Claire. The story he told her was impossible. 3 years ago, Claire had volunteered at a charity event with Derek. Nicholas had been there as a donor. He'd noticed Claire immediately, the way she lit up when talking to people, her genuine kindness, the way she gave her full attention to everyone she spoke with. He'd approached her, and they'd talked for maybe 20 minutes, about books, about travel, about dreams. The connection had been instant, electric, undeniable. Then Derek had appeared, possessive and irritated, pulling Claire away mid-conversation. She'd looked back at Nicholas with apologetic eyes, but she'd followed her fiancé, and Nicholas had never forgotten her. I tried, Nicholas said, his voice low. I dated other people. I threw myself into work, but nothing compared. I hired an investigator, not to stalk you, just to make sure you were safe. And I learned that Derek was cheating on you. I knew about Vanessa months before that wedding. Claire felt her stomach drop. You knew, and you didn't tell me? Would you have believed me? Nicholas asked quietly. A stranger telling you your fiancé was cheating? You loved him, Claire. You wouldn't have heard me. You had to see it for yourself. So I waited. And when I saw you in that coffee shop, heartbroken and lost, I knew it was finally time to step forward. The job offer is real. You're genuinely talented. But yes, it was also my way of being near you. Claire stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. She felt manipulated, confused, angry. You watched me suffer and did nothing? You loved him, Nicholas said simply. You wouldn't have left him based on my word. You had to reach that conclusion yourself. I didn't want to rescue you, Claire. I wanted you to rescue yourself, and you did. She left his office that night feeling overwhelmed. She took several days off work to process everything. At first, she was furious. But as the days passed, something shifted. She thought about Derek, how he'd lied constantly, hidden things, made her feel crazy for questioning him. And she thought about Nicholas, who'd been honest even when it made him look bad, who'd never pushed or pressured her, who'd simply waited. Derek had taken her for granted for 4 years. Nicholas had treasured her from afar for 3, never even knowing if he'd get a chance. A week later, Derek showed up at her apartment. She opened the door to find him standing there, looking tired and desperate. His marriage to Vanessa was already falling apart, he said. She was demanding, controlling, nothing like what he'd expected. He'd made a terrible mistake. He wanted Claire back. "You were the one," Derek said, using all the lines she'd once desperately wanted to hear. "I was confused. We can start over. I promise. This time it'll be different. We'll have the wedding, the kids, everything you wanted." For a moment, Claire felt the old pull. 4 years of memories, good ones mixed with the bad, the life she'd imagined. But then she asked a simple question. "Did you love me?" Derek fumbled. He talked around it, said things like, "Of course, and you know I cared about you." But he couldn't just say yes. He couldn't give her that one simple truth. And suddenly Claire understood. Derek had loved what she did for him, the way she supported his career, boosted his ego, asked for nothing in return. But he'd never loved who she actually was. Nicholas's words echoed in her mind. "I fell in love watching you give to others, never taking for yourself. I deserve someone who chooses me first every time," Claire said. "You never did." "So no, Derek. We're done. Please leave." Derek's face twisted with anger, showing his true colors one final time. He said ugly things on his way out the door, proving that she'd made exactly the right choice. When he left, Claire felt lighter than she had in years. She went back to Hard Industries the next day and asked to see Nicholas. She apologized for running away, thanked him for seeing her when she couldn't see herself, and asked if they could start fresh. Professionally, no expectations. Nicholas agreed, stepping back to give her room to grow. And Claire did grow. She threw herself into therapy, made new friends, rediscovered old hobbies. She became the best version of herself, not for a man, but for her own peace and happiness. Nicholas supported from a distance, celebrating her successes, never pressuring her for more. 6 months later, the company held a major celebration. Claire arrived wearing a deep blue dress, her confidence radiating, genuinely happy for the first time in as long as she could remember. Across the room, Nicholas couldn't take his eyes off her. She noticed and smiled. Then she walked directly up to him. "Ask me to dinner," she said. Nicholas's face broke into the warmest smile she'd ever seen. "Claire Morrison, would you have dinner with me?" "Yes," she said. "I'm finally ready." Their relationship grew slowly, naturally. No games, no lies, no hidden agendas. Just two people who respected each other, cherished each other, built something real together. They talked for hours about everything. He supported her career ambitions. She encouraged his philanthropic dreams. They traveled, laughed, created a life built on trust. 1 year later, Nicholas brought Claire back to the same charity event where they'd first met. Surrounded by twinkling lights and the gentle hum of conversation, he got down on one knee. This time, when Claire said yes, it was to a man who'd chosen her from the very beginning. A man who'd waited patiently for her to choose herself first. On their wedding day, as Claire walked down the aisle toward Nicholas, she felt nothing but gratitude. The man she thought she needed had left her. The man she actually needed had waited until she was strong enough to see him. Derek's betrayal hadn't destroyed her. It had freed her. It had led her exactly where she was always meant to be. Sometimes the worst heartbreak is just the universe making room for the greatest love. And Claire Morrison finally understood that rejection is often just protection in disguise. Claire's story reminds us that rejection is sometimes protection. The person who leaves makes room for the person who truly values you. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more incredible true stories about love, loss, and second chances. Drop a comment telling us, have you ever dodged a bullet by losing someone you thought was the one? We read every single comment. See you in the next story.